Hello everyone, I'm here at the K&T. I got the table off of the knee. Love those exposed gearing. Not good for working, but for looking at it, it's fine. The K&T has this slight problem with this gouging here. It's quite severe. I'd say 20 thousandths deep, maybe. I may machine this. What I could do is take this saddle off and put this saddle on it and machine it so I could scrape it. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to leave it, let it be. Maybe in the future turkite saddle, or put turkite on the saddle. But for now, I'm going to clean everything up, take it apart. Well, actually, right now I'll put it back together. Eventually I'll take it back apart and re-scrape it. Big reason why I would like to re-scrape it is down here. This is your gib. This is your gib on drugs. It's missing a piece. It's not missing, I have the other piece, but it's broken. And if you can see here, there's a ledge that's about 30 thousandths deep. That isn't even, which is odd. It should be even across this whole surface. It should be consistent, but it's not. It's concentrated right here, and it ends about here. Severe scoring right there. This end is just broken cast iron. I'd like to replace it with this gib, but this gib will need to be scraped in. And if I'm going to scrape in this gib, which is also too long, I may as well scrape in the whole machine, because the machine definitely needs it. It's not super severe. There's still some flaking, scraping marks, very faint ones, but it's worn. It needs work, and if I'm going to be using it for the rest of my life, I may as well spend some time making it nice. I'm going to be scraping in the y-axis too. It's not, let's see here, it's not too bad. It has some scratching. It holds oil relatively well. There's some scraping marks, but it could use it. I don't know how accurate it is, and if I'm going to do the x-axis, I may as well do the y-axis. I won't do the z-axis though. That's a bit of a big job. So there's that. I don't know if I'm going to make this into a multi-part series. I could make it into a multi-part series, but I don't even have a surface plate at the moment. So I might just put this video out as a teaser for when I get a surface plate. I believe I'm just going to buy a Grizzly surface plate that has the 24 by 36 surface plate. Obviously not long enough to scrape this entire table in, but there are some tricks I can use to maximize the usability of my surface plate. I don't want to do that. I would love to have a surface plate that is at least 54 inches long, which is the size of this table, by maybe a couple of feet. But they're very expensive, and I'm very young, and I don't have a lot of money. I may have a lead on a surface plate at my father's work, but I won't count on it. Government job, so they throw away a lot of useful things. Here at the K&T, it's been taken apart a little bit. Taking it apart so I can clean it and reflake the surfaces. I would also like to rescrape this after I clean it, because let's see if I can do this one-handed. There we go. That. Flaking is still quite present, so that's a good sign. But there's that, these scratches, and the fact that the wear is pretty uneven. There's more wear at the ends than there is in the middle. So I would like to clean this up, take it apart. Let's see if I can bring it down without crashing. Yep. And re-scrape it to the table. The table is fairly evenly worn, which is a very good sign. You can kind of see some of the scraping marks here. Sorry about my voice, I'm sick at the moment. Kind of maybe see them over here. On the bottom they're a bit more prevalent. So I think I'm going to flake the table and scrape the other side of the saddle, sorry. And then I plan on scraping in the y-axis after I clean it, obviously. I have some material for new felt pads. The felt pads go here. There's little holes that go down. There's a reservoir here that you fill daily. And oil wicks. Oh, you're upside down. Oil wicks will draw oil to those pads to this surface here, to the gears that are here. I had to think about that for a second. To the gears here and to the saddle, or the bottom half of the saddle. So that's my plan. Scrape these two in together. I could flake them. I could just leave it as is, but I'm not happy with it. Don't like it. The scratching. So that's what I'm going to do. It's all going to get cleaned up. This casting down here broke. But this is the advantage of having an entire milling machine. Or another one. I'm going to take this casting off, which is going to be a huge job, because I have to separate take these shafts out and separate the knee's transmission from the knee on both machines. So that's my game plan as of right now. That's what I'll be doing. This is going to take quite a while. It's not going to be very easy, but it will be worth it in the long run. Still don't know how the hell you take this thing off. Gonna have to figure that out. Hello everyone. Just a second here. Clean the camera. I'm here at the K&T, still sick. Okay. I have a hand ground scraper. I'm sort of flaking this. I'm keeping it globally flat, but adding in passages for oil. It does look like chicken scratch, but it'll work. I would like to machine and re-scrape this one day. I have the K&T torn down quite a bit. I know I keep changing my plan over the course of these few days of tearing this thing down. I took off the nut that was here, and I don't know what you would call this, but I've sort of flaked or scraped this rather than completely scraping it to match the saddle. I'm going to do the same thing to the saddle that I did to the knee. And then I'm going to do this to the table, and I'm going to scrape the saddle, the top part of the saddle that the table rides on, to the table. That I will scrape. This I was planning on scraping. I don't have a surface plate. I don't have a decent way to do it. I'll do it in the future, but in the meantime, this should help keep it nice and lubricated. That and keeping it clean. I'm going to get some magnets and some rubber to cover the ways as it slides along. These two patterns look very different from each other, because here it was very easy to go forwards, but here I kind of had to reach. It's kind of difficult. Taking the front off, just refurbishing the mill, sorry. Doing a bit of work to make it last longer. I will scrape in the gib. I have Prussian blue coming, I have whey oil coming. I'm using wool yarn and felt to refelt it and for the oil wicks. Not the proper material, but it's what I have on hand, and I'm probably going to rebuild it in 5 years or so. I'm not going to scrape or flake, I guess, the middle. Reason being is it doesn't touch the middle. There used to be a bit of a U here, but it just wore down so much. There still is a bit of a U in the saddle that slides across this, so the only bits that touch are from about here and the gib. I don't like this scratching, but not much else I can do. I've gotten quite a bit done in just a few days, and I'm going to spend a few more days on this. It's a mess. It's dirty. It's all disgusting. That's alright. Well, I'm done. Table's on. Gib's in. I machined the gib on the machine. Did some kind of off the books stuff to do that. It was, if you look at it in a manual, there's going to be a big circle with a cross through it, or with an X. Let's just say that. I didn't video it because people would unsubscribe and I'm struggling for subscribers. It's all back together. It's all... Let's run down through what I did. I took the table off, took the upper saddle off, took the lower saddle off, took the front of the knee off, replaced the casting here that moves the saddle. I don't want to say scraped, flaked, I guess, or scraped the top of the knee, the y-axis of the knee. I scraped underneath here. I scraped the swivel, whole table swivels. I truly scraped the saddle into the table because I measured the table and I trusted the table enough to be accurate enough to be able to scrape the saddle in. Scrape the saddle in, flake the table. I machined the gib because the gib was far too large. It was about 30 thousandths too large. And I'm going to scrape it in. It's not scraped in yet. I replaced all of the lubrication systems. There are all of the felt and wicks and all of that. I'm putting oil in it. It's nice. Whenever I move something, there's a bunch of oil everywhere, which is nice to see. Even if I wipe everything down and I move it, still oil. Now, naturally, this machine being 70 odd years old, almost 80 years old, it still has some issues. There's down here, there's a matching taper, and I put it in backwards, so I'm going to have to take all this off. But the way I'm going to take it off, I'm going to raise the table up, hook the table to the overarms, lower the knee, flip it around, and raise the knee. Not going to have to do much heavy lifting, and I'm confident that these overarms can take it. They're, I think, 3 5/8-ish. They're fine. I'll make sure it's all close to the machine. Not only that, but the built-in traverse stop for the feed. It's not in a position where it wants to move, but it was rounded. This corner here, it slides in there like that. It was rounded and it wasn't working. I don't usually move the table that far where it hits the traverse stop, but I did. It hit this and it just sheared that pin that holds it in there, and it was sticking below, and it just did a bunch of bad. I might fix this one. I might make a new one. How I would make a new one, I have no idea. Maybe a belt sander and just fit it by hand. It's not a precision part. All it does is make sure that the table doesn't go over too far. For now, I'll be using the built-in factory production stops, the movable stops. I'll have to make sure that the handle is down so that these little dogs will trip. Speaking of the production dogs, the ones that go underneath the table are right here. Those need to be cleaned up and replaced. And also, let's see if you guys can see this. Yeah, it's this direction. There's a little pin right there. That pin is supposed to hit this dog to trip the power feed so that it doesn't travel too far. For some reason it doesn't now. I don't know if it did before. I'm 90% sure it did before. Yeah, it did before. I remember using that. But it just doesn't. Is it that direction? In one of these directions it just doesn't hit. It might be going towards the knee. So I don't know if I'm going to fix that or if I'm just going to use the production stops to act as the pin, because I don't use the Y-axis production stops ever. They're convenient if I'm doing a lot of a part, but if I'm doing something like that, I tend to use the X-axis stops because they're easier to adjust. They're right here, and I need to put the stops for the Z-axis on too. Those ones I'm not worried about at all. Other than that, it's all back together, working nicely. I should be getting a dividing head soon, and a lot of cutters from Precision Machine Tool in Honolulu, which will be very nice. Here's my little die that I made that's worked a charm. And then I'm going to take this here, this pulley from my other mill, turn it into a coat rack. I got a little graveyard of K&T parts, coolant pump, the broken casting, coolant pump cover, guts of the pump, handles, all sorts of little parts. If you need K&T parts, let me know. Thank you for watching this video and suffering through me bumbling and hardly videoing stuff and talking a lot. If you like that, subscribe. Hopefully I get better at this. I'm not an expert at all. Only 19. That should be my motto. Well, catch you in the next video. Have a great day.